I always like it when I look out of one window and it's raining like mad, and the other one, the sun's shining, it's dry. It's just
So scattered showers, right?
it's scattered in my neighbor's yard and not in mine right now.
Mark or Keith, have we heard from Christina or Jerry about whether they're not going to be here tonight?
I haven't heard from anybody.
I suspect Jerry's coming. I got an email from him earlier today.
Will that make quorum?
We've got quorum. We're fine there. I was just curious. There they are anyway.
And the meeting's live on home TV. You're good to go at any time, sir.
Thank you very much. It is 7 p.m., so we will go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Meridian Township Planning Commission, the May 24th, 2021 meeting to order. First on our agenda is public remarks. There will be 4 opportunities for public remarks. There'll be one right now, one at the conclusion of the meeting, and 2 in our public hearings agenda item, which is agenda item 6. You may speak to any topic now or at the end of the meeting. If you choose to speak during the public comment at the public hearings, you must limit your remarks to the topics being discussed. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and if you would please give us your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. You can comment 2 ways tonight. The first is if you are in our Zoom meeting, you can use the raised hand feature to indicate that you'd like to be promoted to a panelist, and you may speak at that time. Also, you may call us at 517-349-1232, and our staff will put you through to the Planning Commission. So with that, we'll go ahead and give everyone a moment to either raise your hand or call in. I do see one hand raised in our participants panel here. Okay, Satish, you are on with the Planning Commission. Go ahead and please give us your full name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission on a topic of your choosing.
Oh, hi. My name is Satish, and my address is 2003 Birch Bluff Drive, Okemos, Michigan 48864. And I don't know if this is appropriate to talk, but I have a question. And if this isn't, and if there is another way that I should bring this up, please let me know. What I wanted to ask is, we own a grocery store at the Meridian Crossings Drive that's in Okemos and Jolly Crossings. There is a property right next to it which came on sale. That's a former PNC bank that's on Jolly Oaks Road. I wanted to check with you guys to see, right now it is zoned as a professional office. If I wanted to put a request for to change the zoning for commercial or retail zoning, how do I do it, or how can I request that to happen so that I can move my business into that location? Sorry.
Sure. No, thank you. We certainly appreciate that. This is not really the best venue to proceed with that question. However, Mark or Keith, I think, will be reaching out, and you can give them a call, and maybe they'll be able to provide their phone number so that you can reach out to them to understand that process better.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else wishing to address the Planning Commission at this time?
I'm seeing no hands and have no telephone calls, sir.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close public remarks. And Mark and Keith, if you could you provide one of your phone numbers to Satish so that he's got it to reach out to you?
I will send him a message.
Okay, thank you very much. Satish, be ready for that. Okay,
Thanks, Bob.
with that, we'll move on then to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 3, approval of the agenda. And actually, before we get to the approval of the agenda, I will take just a moment to recognize that we have a new staff member on with us, Tim Schmidt. You can tell us if you'd prefer to go by Timothy, I suppose. I shortened that for you. He will be taking over for Mark, who, as we all know, is leaving us in just another day, I think. So welcome, Tim. We appreciate your being here and working with Mark during the transition period, and look forward to working with you further as we move on here. We'll give you a second if you would like to introduce yourself and give us a minute of your background. That would be lovely.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Again, thank you for the introduction. I look forward to working with everyone. Got a warm welcome so far in Meridian Township, so obviously I appreciate the honeymoon that's continuing right now, and I can hopefully do some good stuff with you in this period of time. And Keith and I will keep implementing all the good work of the board and the commission and following Mark's footsteps effectively. By way of background, I was previously with the city of Howell for 6.5 years as their community development director, and prior to that was with East Lansing for almost every bit of 7.5 years, almost 8 years there, I believe. I come from Ohio, went to Ohio University for my undergraduate and Ohio State for my grad school. And then I'd like to say I was the only person that moved to Michigan during the last auto recession. So I have been in the state for almost 20 years now, and in mid-Michigan for nearly a decade, and just bought a house. We bought a house last year, and we looked at houses, 1 property to the east of Meridian Township and 2 properties to the west of Meridian Township, because the market is insane right now. So we are currently just to the west of you guys, not even to Hagedorn, just north of Grand River. So my wife and my 3.5-year-old, who is currently watching Daniel Tiger, I believe. So I apologize if there's background noise. Look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you very much, and welcome. We're very excited to have you on the team. So we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda this evening? Moved by Commissioner Cordell. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bloomer. Any comments or changes on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda passes. So our next item on the agenda then is approval of minutes. We had 1 set of meeting minutes from our May 10th, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes? Moved by Commissioner Primo. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Richards. Any comments or changes on the minutes this evening? Yes, Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I passed on that there was just one very minor where I think it was on page 7, it referenced an Eagle grant, but it was, instead of EGLE, it was ELGE. So
Okay.
Other than that is fine.
All right. We'll go ahead and accept that if the motion maker is comfortable as a friendly amendment to the minutes. Any additional changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes pass. All right, we next agenda item is communications. We had one from Director Clark regarding the rezoning public hearing, which I'm sure we will hear a little bit more about momentarily. So we'll move on to agenda item 6A, which is our first public hearing of the evening. Rezoning number 21050 M&J Management to rezone an approximately 5-acre parcel located at 1999 Saginaw Highway from C2 Commercial to I Industrial. And we will open the public hearing at 7:08 p.m. And we will hand things off to, who is it tonight? Keith or
I'm going
Mark?
to take this one. Yeah.
To Keith. We'll hand things off to Keith. Go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
Okay, rezoning 21050 M&J Management LLC. The request is to rezone approximately 5 acres located at 1999 East Saginaw Highway from C2 Commercial to I Industrial. A little bit about tonight's meeting. You can find the meeting packet online at www.meridian.mi.us underneath the meetings tab. After tonight, you can find it under the Planning Commission section on the website. Format of this public hearing, you'll hear this staff summary of the request, a presentation from the applicant, and public comment, which allows 3 minutes per person maximum. And that will be followed by the Planning Commission discussion. So staff focuses on the rezoning, not the development. There's a separate process for the development of land, and that process is similar to the rezoning process. So a little bit of history about this site. There was a land division that was approved in 2018, which created this 5-acre parcel from a larger 15-acre parcel, which was owned and occupied by the Meridian Company. So the 10.65 acre adjacent parcel is zoned industrial. A wireless communications tower was constructed on this property near the southeast corner of the lot in 2001. And in 2018, the applicant rezoned this property from I Industrial to C2 Commercial. So the future land use map for this parcel designates it as business technology. It's pretty much surrounded by that to the east, the south, and the west, and then across Saginaw Highway is more commercial. Currently zone C2 commercial. The proposed zoning is I Industrial. The zoning district establishes minimum lot size and lot width, as well as permitted land uses. So the C2 zoning district requires a minimum of 100 feet of lot width and 4,000 square feet of lot area. The requested I industrial zoning district requires a minimum of 100 feet of lot width and 1 acre of lot area. And this is a map that shows the location, which is currently zone C2, surrounded by the I industrial, as well as some multifamily across Saginaw Highway. So the township wetland map shows wetlands on this property. If there is a development that is proposed, a wetland delineation report would be required, which would determine the boundary and size of those wetlands. And then future development would also be required to comply with the wetland protection ordinance and wetland water feature setbacks as applicable. And this just shows the wetlands on the property, as well as the Klinger drain, which is also located on the property. Streets and traffic. This property has frontage on Saginaw Highway, and the applicant did submit a traffic generation analysis that compares a supermarket for the existing C2 zoning and a light industrial facility for the proposed industrial zoning. And based on the figures shown in this table below, it doesn't necessitate a traffic assessment or a traffic study per the ordinance. So review criteria for rezoning. The Planning Commission and Township Board must consider all uses that are permitted by right in the current and proposed zoning districts, all uses by special use permit in the current and proposed zoning districts, as well as the reasons for the rezoning, which are listed on page 2 of the rezoning application, and the applicant's responses to those reasons. Staff analysis. So the I industrial purpose of the I industrial zoning district is to encourage development of light manufacturing, processing, storage, and office establishments. Some of the uses permitted by right include production, processing, cleaning, testing, repair, storage, and distribution of material goods or foodstuffs, contractor establishments, instructional centers for business, trade, music, art, dance, martial arts, or other places of instruction, and any accessory uses clearly pertinent to the main use of the lot and customary to and commonly associated with the main use. So the purpose of the C2 zoning district is to accommodate commercial and business service activities that serve the community. This district permits a wide variety of business and service activities by right and special use permit. And the business technology category of the future land use map is intended to serve the community's need for research facilities, light industrial opportunities, or corporate campuses. So this designation correlates with our PO, professional office, research park, and industrial zoning district. And as I previously mentioned, there is a drain on the property, so any future development is going to be impacted by that. So they will have to meet the township's water feature setback of 50 feet from the top of bank for open county drains. So what's next? Further discussion or possible action at the next June 14th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. There won't be any additional notices or letters sent out. Staff will prepare a resolution for consideration based on the discussion tonight, and planning staff is available for any questions between meetings.
Thank you very much, Keith. Do we have a representative of the applicant here this evening who wishes to speak on this request? If you are, and you're in the, looks like we're maybe promoting someone who is. So we'll give Craig a minute here. Craig, make sure you unmute.
Good evening. My name is Jim Filipich, and I'm the J in M&J Management. Across the table here is my brother Marty. He co-founded the company known as Meridian Plumbing back in 1984. And the third member here is son Craig, Hazel resident who is transitioning to take over the business that we've had now for almost 40 years. Essentially, the request tonight is to retro zone that 5-acre parcel of our tract here that essentially had been industrial for as long as I or perhaps even Mark could remember. And the question might be asked, what was the rationale behind requesting the C2 zoning 3 years ago? And I like to just barely step back in time. In the second quarter of 18, the only mid-Michigan area Costco warehouse had opened up 1.5 miles to the west of us. And there was an awful lot of buzz running up and down the Saginaw corridor with regards to potential commercial development. And driven by those initial impressions, we opted to see or test the waters, whatever you want to call it, with a commercial rezoning here, realizing that since literally we're on the doorstep of Bath Township, with the Meyer facility 1,000 feet away from us, that the commercial interest, if you would probably come from the east for our land, well in advance of coming from the west where Costco is. And you fast forward 3 years later, and I guess the realization that we've come to as a family business is that commercial development along the eastern third of Meridian's Saginaw corridor is just going to be a long time coming. There's only been one new construction initiative on this stretch since we moved in 2000. And that was, I think, 3 years ago at the point of Counter and Saginaw. And other than that, there's been simply no development other than the relocation of the New Hope Church from Hazlet along this corridor. So in keeping in line with what the future land use map calls for this area, together with now the potential for additional acreage to be included in the Smart Zone initiative with Meridian Township, we've concluded it would be best to essentially request this retro zoning.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will go ahead and move on to public remarks. A reminder from Keith's presentation, if you would like to speak during public remarks, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Give us your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. And if you are looking to join from the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand. And if you're at home, you can call us at 517-349-1232. Looks like before we get to that, we're going to have Director Clark, who would like to speak for a moment. Director Clark.
Well, thank you very much, but I will follow the public hearing procedure here. 1348 Bayshore Drive. My name is Amber Clark. I'm Director of Neighborhoods and Economic Development here with Meridian Township. I am in support of the rezoning in front of you to 1050 to rezone a 5-acre parcel on Saginaw back to industrial. And I want to be clear that my support, though, is very timely. It wasn't necessarily a long discussion or planned out activities for the township to begin discussion about the smart zone and entering into that local development finance authority agreement with the city of Lansing and East Lansing. It's just very timely that we have a few business owners, reputable business owners that have been here in our community for a long time that are interested in making expansions or changes to their business services. And those businesses fall into our industrial zones, and there are not very many places for them to go should they choose to do an expansion. I know one conversation that this commission has had before them and has probably had the question about was, when you looked at the rezoning on Jolly Road, should that business owner decide to leave, where would they go where their function of their business is used by right, where it's ample for their customers to get them, that it's efficient. So I'm in support of rezoning for the property aforementioned, not just because of the smart zone's ability to attract new businesses, that our future land use map does indicate that area as a business technology center. And that is what the connection of the smart zone will be. Will allow for those light industrial uses, that kind of testing, the type of work that we see down at the Van Camp building. If we can expand that program, it would make better ties with MSU, better ties with East Lansing and Lansing. And on top of which, it allows an already existing, well-established business to expand, to provide their business, the residents that I've been a customer of them, to be able to give us more options. So I appreciate it. I really hope that you consider it. Again, it is just very timely that we're having the discussion about smart zones and that there's interest to include the Meridian Township into that. And it would just make an even better case to see improvement in the area and to see value, a taxable value increase in the area to be able to provide something more for any other future development that could come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wishing to speak this evening on this topic? I did not see any hands raised. Stephen, anyone on the phone?
You have no call, sir.
All right. Very good. Then we will go ahead and close public remarks and move on to Planning Commission discussion. Any planning commissioners wishing to speak? Commissioner Bloomer.
I am tentatively in favor of the request for rezoning. It seems to me logical. It's a retrograde zone back to its original format. It's consistent with all the use around it. And I agree with Ms. Clark that it would fit in with future land use planning for the commission, for the township. I don't see any reason to object to what they're doing.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Commissioner Cordell.
I would echo Commissioner Bloomer's comments about it. Seems quite reasonable to go back to the zoning.
Commissioner McConnell.
Yeah, thanks. As a relative newcomer, I would appreciate hearing a little bit of history about the business technology category in the future land use map, and what that was intended to accomplish, either from staff or maybe the applicant or other commissioners.
We'll leave that one to Director Kieselbach.
Bill, could you say it one more time for me?
Yeah, I know that we've had some discussions in the past about the business technology category. There was an application on Hagedorn that I think maybe fell into that same sort of thing. And I'm curious just for a little bit of the institutional memory of what that category was intended to serve in the master plan, and how this kind of fits into it.
It was originally meant to be for technology issues. Again, maybe those would be some type of manufacturing or some type of business incubating to start new businesses from.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Kind of echoing Commissioner Cordell's comments, I'm also a customer of the Meridian Company, and some of the stuff they do is very high technology. You know, you can control your AC system from your smartphone and things, and so that feels to me kind of compatible in many ways with this. Thanks.
Commissioner Snyder.
Thank you. So I'm also kind of looking for a similar clarification along the same lines of Commissioner McConnell. So maybe just in addition to what you've already let us know about Director Kieselbach, as I look at the future land use map and I see the purple on the map and it says business technology, is that title just replacing all the industrial zoning? Or because I don't even, on the future land use map, I don't see in the industrial category at all. So maybe if I could just understand that better.
I think it's the way the, again, it's a future land use map. So that trend is more towards the technology part of the industrial use or the research park, such as we have research park zoning, or possibly the office. Wasn't intended for any heavy manufacturing or like a foundry or some production like that. That's more towards the high tech type of businesses that we saw the industrial moving towards.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's been an issue of some confusion for me in the last few years, is trying to square the circle of the different zoning categories versus the different future land use map types. I think it would be so helpful if at some point we could get a flow chart or a graph with lines connecting which zoning categories have traditionally been associated with which future land use map categories. Just for the sake of ease, we can give it to all the new commissioners, and myself included. to sort of get us a better flow chart, or if we can even do that, that's something that I felt would be really helpful in these discussions. Because I agree, industrial doesn't really, you don't think business and technology necessarily when you look at industrial zoning, but that's which category it falls into generally. So just something to think about, especially since we're going to be revisiting the future land use map as part of the master plan reboot over the next year or so. I will, while I'm going, I will echo the comments of my other commissioners. I think that this makes perfect sense to go back to the zoning that it was originally. I certainly understand the applicant's intent several years ago to try to capitalize on new redevelopment in the area, if possible. But while I disagree that, there may not be, new development coming in the future, we've got a great team trying to bring new business in. Certainly it's appropriate to revert back to the zoning that the surrounding area is. So I would be generally in support of this application. Any other commissioners wishing to speak on this? Okay, I don't see any hands raised or anyone waving at me. So we will go ahead and move on to our straw poll. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, the Planning Commission does a straw poll at the end of each public hearing to gather a sense of the Planning Commission. This is not a formal vote. This is merely our opinions at the moment, and it will hopefully direct our staff in how to generate a resolution for a vote, which will be occurring at the next meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner McConnell.
Support.
Commissioner Primo.
Support.
Commissioner Cordell.
Support.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Support.
Commissioner Richards.
Support.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes, support.
Commissioner Snyder.
Support.
Commissioner Trezise.
Support.
And I would also be supportive. So it looks like we've given our staff some direction here as to how we'd like to see the resolution for our next meeting. And with that, we will go ahead and close our public hearing at 7:30 p.m. And we'll move on to agenda item 6B, which is our second public hearing of the evening. It's zoning amendment number 21020 from the Planning Commission to amend section 86-440 mixed use plan unit development MUPUD of the Code of Ordinances. And we will open the public hearing at 7:31. And we will turn things back over to Director Kieselbach.
Good evening again, commissioners. I know you've spent a considerable amount of time on this amendment, along with the mixed-use planned unit development subcommittee that you had on this. So I'm just going to give some of the highlights of this amendment for you. And as a means of background, the mixed-use planned unit development ordinance was originally established in the early 2000s. And it's an overlay district. It's applicable to properties zoned in the commercial category or the office category, and it allows for non-residential and residential uses to be mixed on a site. This amendment came through as some of the other amendments we've had over time with this mixed use. It's really seeing how the different projects come through. And there's a concern, does the ordinance address this or doesn't address it? Is it a good factor to have in our ordinance, or should we change it? And I think in this one, the majority of the items that raised the issues was how the amenities section was being handled. A couple other things though that got changed is we did create a new overlay area within the mixed use ordinance. You have the downtown Okemos area and you have the downtown Hazlet area. Now the proposal would have the Meridian Mall property. in those overlays, there's an opportunity to have increase in density or increase in height of buildings. There's 11 performance criteria that's an applicant would have to meet to get that exception, and that is subject to the township board. One of the other things is now this sort of streamlining the process. And if you have your mixed use plan unit development approval, that also covers as the approval for any other special use permit that you may need for this development. Again, sort of, we've had to process both mixed use requirements and special use permit as they come through, and this will sort of streamline that process under one approval. And as I said, the majority of the changes are in the amenities section. You've provided a new definition for amenities in that section. You've tried to weigh the amenity that is being offered based on the type of development. So put that in proportion to what's being requested as part of the project. At least one amenity is going to be required for every project. And then for every waiver that's being requested, you must have at least one amenity. And then for every density bonus, you're going to need a minimum of 4 amenities to be part of that. And they've been broken into different areas. And I'm just going to go through and just mention some of the ones for the people that may be watching this. In category 1, so for one amenity, you would need a minimum, if you're going to have just that one amenity, you're going to have a minimum of 5 electric car charging station. You could have, if you increase the number of street trees by 50% and increase the diameter or the caliper of that tree by 1 inch, you could apply that as an amenity. Sidewalk planters and decorative streetlights are also amenities under that category. And then under the category where 2 amenities are going to be required, you have the enhanced public transit stops. You have public art at 1% of the project cost. And then you have the mixed dwelling type of units that are going to be required as for 2 amenities. And then if you do propose 3 amenities, now you're getting into LEED certification, multi-level parking decks or underground parking. You're doing outdoor gathering space of a minimum of 20% of the building footprint, or 5,000 square feet of contiguous space for that. The one other thing you added in this, and you'll see it, is a definition for the natural features study that's going to be required for that. And we took that out of our site plan section of the ordinance. So that, I think that goes over the highlights of this amendment, and I'd be glad to answer any questions for you.
Thank you very much. Since the Planning Commission is the applicant or the requester for this particular request, we'll go ahead and forego our applicant time in favor of efficacy here, as we have discussed this at great length, and we'll leave any further discussion to the Planning Commission discussion later. So we will move on then to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak at public comment may raise their hand or give us a phone call once again at 517-349-1232. And please give us your name and address at the beginning. I don't see any hands raised in our attendee area. I think I recognize the 2 folks who are there from agenda item 8A. So we'll, if they wish to speak, go ahead. Anyone on the phones, Stephen?
No, sir, the phone lines are quiet.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and close public remarks, and we'll move on to Planning Commission discussion. Any commissioners wishing to speak on this? Commissioner Bloomer.
I just want to congratulate the people who worked on this project. There's obviously a huge amount of work that went into this. And frankly, I find it very impressive, especially considering electric parking stations to be an amenity, because I'm planning on buying an electric vehicle. So, but, it's obvious to me that people have put a lot of work into this, and they should be congratulated.
Absolutely. Commissioner Cordell.
I was a committee member. I can hold my comments until other commissioners, but if, in case there wasn't any at the moment, I would go ahead.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, staff was wonderful in carrying this out. We kind of did policy discussion, but in terms of putting it into an ordinance, they were instrumental. I would just add affordable, and what I think we need to have affordable housing units, because in our definitions, it is mentioned as an amenity on page 9, number 3. It's highly weighted, a minimum of 20% of the total units, and I would within the development identified as affordable units. I would just interject affordable housing units, and then have that definition of what is an affordable housing unit. Is it 80% of the median income, you know, affordable to someone making 80% of the median income? I think we need a definition.
Okay. Was there anything else, Holly?
Sure. I don't know if I took exception to what other people felt on this, but I am looking at page 7 of it, and let's see, I'm trying to, it's E number, let's see, it's under E, no, excuse me, F. It says uses may be mixed vertically and or horizontally. If I would not want a single building, the addition of something be considered mixed use if it doesn't possess that within all of its walls. I think this overlay or ordinance goes above and beyond our ordinances as they are, and I think there's an advantage to tightening that up. Maybe there are others on the committee or others on the commission who feel this way as well.
Sorry, could you restate what it is that you're objecting to there? I guess I got a little confused as I was trying to scroll through the ordinance to find what you're talking
I'm trying
about.
to find it. Yeah, I was trying to think of what the heading is.
I think I found it. I missed some of your comments as I was scrolling.
Oh, okay. Trying to give you context for this. I know. Let's
So
see.
your discussion was it's on page 42 of the packet or page 7 of the ordinance.
Yes.
Subsection F, uses may be mixed vertically and or horizontally.
Yes.
And your concern is that it's may and not must be?
I'm not a big fan of the horizontal being considered mixed use. Mixed use within a building would be one thing, but a building on a different parcel has a different use than its neighbors is not considered mixed use in my thinking.
Okay.
If someone else wants to expand upon that, but I think we should tighten it up, eliminate.
Okay.
Maybe eliminate altogether.
Maybe it might be helpful to get a reaction from staff. That's not how I personally read it, but maybe Amber or Mark could help to get us some clarification there.
Yeah, I think the originality of that comes from the mixed use concept, like a golf course, and there's a neighborhood that is connected to a golf course, that would be like a horizontal sprawl, or like Elevation initially had a mixed use approved development for the apartments and the rest, like what would be Joe's on Jolly. So I think that is what the commission was trying to do, or the subcommittee was trying to do, was to envision a development where maybe there was multi-residential in a portion of the project, and then maybe there was some green space or a park or something else that was connected to the residential in a commercial way. So when we spoke about it at the time, Peter Menzer, we were talking about golf courses or planned neighborhoods that have like a dog park membership or something, where they would need land and everyone would have access to it. I think maybe that could be tightened up or gone into more details to explain what exactly we mean by allowing the mixed and the vertical.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Trezise, were you looking to comment on this?
Yeah, as I recall the discussion about horizontal and vertical, I think I understand where Commissioner Cordell's coming from, that there was a concern of building an apartment building and then connecting it to a commercial development by tunnel, whatever. I mean, it really wasn't part of the same. It's just sort of attached in order to meet the requirements. I think there was some discussion about whether, as Commissioner Cordell was saying, it should be within a building, but if you have a multiple building development, like the Elevation, are we requiring multi-use in each building or something like that? So I'm not sure that I know how to get over that hurdle. I was very impressed with the results of the rewrite, and so I wouldn't struggle over that issue. That should be addressed during the plan of review and amenity review, in my mind.
Commissioner Snyder, I saw your hand a moment ago.
I was actually just going to ask at that time for maybe staff to clarify what that meant. And they did, and I appreciate it.
Commissioner Bloomer.
With all due respect to Commissioner Cordell, I'm afraid that if you get too specific, you'll defeat one of the basic purposes of this rewrite, which is to encourage flexibility in multi-use development. I think leaving it like this, as it's currently worded, is probably more beneficial to the interpretation of the statute or of the ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
You know, I just wanted to chime in here and say that this is a good conversation for us going forward, because even if we don't make any changes to the specific language, we have a baseline to have these conversations with the developer, that any developers in the future, that, hey, there's some skepticism in terms of a horizontal type mixed use project. So you're really going to need to make your case effectively to the Planning Commission if you're going in under this. So I think the intent is obviously to provide some flexibility and get a good design, but that we now have sort of the background from the Planning Commission to go forward and say, hey, there's some concern if you're just doing this to slide in under the ordinance kind of in a halfway fashion, that, you know, it's not going to go over well. So it's a good conversation to have, regardless, I think, of how you end up settling on the language in the end.
Commissioner Primo.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Bloomer said. I think that we're never going to get a perfectly worded ordinance, any of our ordinances for that matter. I think it's time to say we've done our work and move it forward as is.
Thank you, Commissioner Primo. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yeah, I understand Commissioner Cordell's concerns, specifically regarding the horizontal issue. I also agree that I think giving ourselves the flexibility in ordinance and allowing us to take these on case by case as they come up will be helpful. And I do think it's a valuable conversation, just because we're on record, we're recorded, we're here telling the development community that we want to make sure it's a good proposal that comes in if they're looking to do a horizontal mix of uses. And as Mr. Schmidt says, we want to make sure that we are doing that we see the result of good planning and have them make their case to us. So I think that, while I understand where Commissioner Cordell is coming from, I think that overall we're in a fine spot with the language as it is today. With respect to the other change, yeah, I think the more definition we can provide about affordable housing, the better, if that's something that was left out. Yeah, I don't know the specific wording, or if there's examples from other communities for what the definition would be. I'm sure there is. And perhaps staff can help us to find that between now and when we vote on this the next time around. Commissioner Trezise.
Yeah, it seems to me there is, either in various federal housing or state housing acts, a definition of what is considered affordable housing, and it is based on the median income and the cost per month and a percentage of income and something like that. If we put a definition in there that conflicts with state or federal law, or is more restrictive or is less, it may hamstring us from following the laws that are applicable in this situation. And it's easier to follow what is an established law over a large area than it is to fly spec each one from a township level. So if I'm incorrect that there isn't some standard already in existence, then I withdraw this comment. But I think there are established parameters for a definition of affordable housing.
Sure. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns here? Commissioner Cordell. Oh, you're muted, Commissioner.
I don't mean to hold it up. If we're prepared to go forward with this, by all means, but if it's needed that we put it on next meeting agenda, that's fine too. But I'm not trying to, a lot of work has gone into. I think it's great accomplishment. We tightened a lot of things up. If we can go forward with it tonight, that would be wonderful.
I think we can have it all, right? If staff can get us a definition that is compliant with, with state and federal laws, as Commissioner Trezise suggested, we can amend this at the next meeting in a way that will not have us be out of compliance with the rest of the state, and we can move forward. Right? We're at the public hearing part, so we can do that and then make that amendment next time around. Commissioner Trezise.
It may be a situation of just referring to those rules rather than specifying them, so that it's said in there what standards we're going to apply.
Commissioner Snyder.
I just wanted to voice appreciation for Commissioner Cordell noticing that, and I should have mentioned it earlier, but I'm in complete agreement that a definition is appropriate and necessary, and seems like maybe the HUD definition could work, but obviously the conversation about following the applicable laws is important. So I just wanted to voice that, because I would agree this is an important issue and a definition is necessary.
Thank you. Commissioner Bloomer.
I'd just like to agree with Commissioner Tresize. If you incorporate by reference an outside statute, and that statute then changes, it automatically changes ours as well. Saves us a lot of work and a lot of grief in the future. So if there is an existing statute whose definition we appreciate, just adopt it by reference, and that way we'll stay current with it if it changes in the future.
The Commissioner Bloomer doesn't want to revisit this 16 times over the next 20 years. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our straw poll then. We'll start with Commissioner McConnell.
Support.
Commissioner Primo.
Support.
Commissioner Cordell.
Support.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Support.
Commissioner Richards.
Support.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Support.
Commissioner Snyder.
Support.
Commissioner Tresize.
Support.
And I too would support. It would be helpful, I think, for Director Kieselbach or Director Schmidt to take a look into the reference language for the definition, so we can have that ready in case we want to move forward with that change at the next meeting.
Did you just overlook Commissioner Bloomer?
No, I voted.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I pull up a list every time just so I can make sure I'm ticking along and making sure I get everyone.
I apologize for my old age.
Mr. Chair, I will gladly look into this. Turns out my wife does affordable housing for a living, so I'll be able to give you guys some feedback on this item at the next meeting.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing at 7:54 p.m. I'll move on to our next agenda item. Looks like we mixed up other business and unfinished business again, which is agenda item 8, other business 8A, rezoning number 21030 New China of Michigan to rezone 0.42 acres of RC, multiple family maximum 14 dwelling units per acre, to RCC, multiple family maximum 34 dwelling units per acre at 5114 Jodan Drive. I believe, if I recall correctly, it was Keith that was taking the ball on this one.
Yeah, so the Planning Commission previously had discussed this at the April 12th meeting. At that meeting, the applicant provided a condition for the rezoning, and the Planning Commission took a straw poll at the end and decided that they would not support the rezoning of the property. Since that time, the applicant has submitted a revised condition to be added to the rezoning request. And so this was based on comments that Planning Commission had stated at the previous meeting. And the condition now reads, upon approval of the rezoning by the Township Board, the applicant will come back in 30 days of the approval and request rezoning of the north half of the parcel from RCC to RB single family high density.
Can you give us a sense, Keith, of or Mark, of what the RB zoning looks like in terms of density and acreage?
Yeah, so that's single family high density. There is a minimum lot width of 65 feet, and I believe it's 4,000 square feet lot area.
It's 8,000, and one of the reasons for that, if this property is split, that northern half would only have approximately 9,000 square feet. So RB would fit that category, and then the next higher category is RA, and that requires a minimum of 10,000 square feet lot. So that was why RB was chosen.
And the I'm sorry if we're jumping into it here, the surrounding area is RA?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Before we go any further, Commissioner Shrewsbury pointed out that we neglected to do attendance as well as whether or not we were participating remotely and from where. So we're going to go ahead and pause for a moment on our current agenda item and do that. So we'll go ahead and get started with Commissioner McConnell.
I'm Bill McConnell, participating from here in Meridian Township.
And participating remotely. All right, Commissioner Primo.
Commissioner Primo, participating locally from my house, remotely.
Okay. Commissioner Cordell.
Let me see if I can get all the necessary. Commissioner Cordell, I'm participating remotely from my home in Meridian Township.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
I am Alice Ann Shrewsbury, and I am participating remotely from my home in Okemos.
Commissioner Richards.
Jerry Richards, participating remotely from my home in Meridian Township.
Commissioner Bloomer.
I am Commissioner Mark Bloomer. I'm participating from my home in Meridian Township.
Commissioner Snyder.
Christina Snyder, participating remotely from my home in Meridian Township.
Commissioner Trezise.
Peter Trezise, Commissioner, participating remotely from my house in Meridian Township.
And I'm Scott Hendrickson. I am participating remotely from Okemos, Michigan. All right, with that formality out of the way, we'll get back to this agenda item. And I saw Commissioner Shrewsbury and then Commissioner Cordell.
Now I have to get back to what I was thinking then. So my question on this one is, I'm not sure if this is the time to ask this question or if this is when it's before us, but my understanding was that, you know, they're rezoning in order to be able to split the parcel. And now it sounds like they would rezone it if the split was approved. So I'm wondering if that, I know we can't propose conditions, but since this isn't really before us except for discussion, you know, if that needs to be taken into consideration and possibly be a condition as well, you know, upon successful split of the property. And then my other concern, just thinking back to the discussion that we had on this several meetings ago, is that it sounded to me that just from the input that we heard from the surrounding neighbors, that they were supportive of a single family home being built on that property, but not of like a multiple housing unit. And so if the zoning that it would come back to would be something that would permit a bigger, you know, if this is the only way to do what they need to do to do what the neighbors seem to, it just seems like there's still a lot of unanswered questions that I'm not sure that I'm clear on what the implications of this change would be, and want to make sure I understand that before I make a decision or have an opinion on support or not.
Mark, can you weigh in on that, please?
Well, the current zoning for RC was in place back in the 1960s. And at the time this 6-unit building was built, it met the density standards for RC and could have met some of the setback standards for RC. Under the current RC zoning, it doesn't meet density because it's 1 unit too much. This property would only allow for 5 units per acre. And
I can maybe step you on this one because I was confusing north and south. So it's the existing building that needs to be rezoned to be compliant.
Again, maybe moving back.
Go ahead, I'll stop.
How this originally started was the applicant came in and approached staff about could they divide the property in half, keeping the building on the southern portion and selling the northern portion because they had someone interested in buying it. The staff couldn't approve that because it would make the existing building even more non-conforming than it already is. And the parcel that was being created wouldn't meet the minimum standards for the RC zoning. They had thought about going to the Zoning Board of Appeals and possibly getting a variance for density. And the zoning board of appeals does not have the ability to grant a variance for density. So that's what started this process of requesting a rezoning, trying to come up with some way for the owner to be able to use that northern portion, which right now is just green space. It's not developed. And to bring the existing 6-unit building based on just solely density for conformity, it needs the RCC zoning. And then the question was, well, if we rezone it to all RCC, it's approximately 12 units per acre. They possibly, or 12 units on this site, and they possibly could tear down that existing building and build something more dense. So that was part of that suggestion with the condition that you put a time frame on it, that if it is granted that to RCC, then the applicant would have to come back and seek a rezoning for that northern portion to RB. If they didn't come in within the time period, then it would become null and void and go back to the original zoning. And again, if the board at the time it came for RB said no, then it would revert back to its original zoning.
It's a complicated one.
It is complicated.
Commissioner Cordell.
I'm ready to recommend this with two things kind of solidified in my mind that, and I think it was already mentioned that if this condition is not met, then it reverts back. But the RB, as in Richard Brewster, zoning would allow a single family home or a duplex.
Not a duplex, just a single family.
Just a single family home. Okay. That answers my concerns. Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions in addition here based on what we've been presented this evening. So first question, north half of the property as it's defined in the condition. Maybe Mark or Keith, in your conversations with the applicant, are they looking to split the parcel evenly in two? They are. It's an even division, 50%.
Yeah,
that's what they've told us.
Okay. Second question: if this all gets approved and this whole plan comes to fruition and everyone's happy at the end of the day, will the southern half of the parcel, now zoned to be RCC, will that still, with the current building, be in conformance once the split happens?
It would be in conformance for density. Again, the building, because of its age, doesn't meet the setback requirements. So the building itself would be non-conforming because of that.
Sure. And that theoretically, they could go to the ZBA for if they wanted.
Right.
So how many dwelling units would the southern half property under RCC qualify for maximum possible?
It would be, we had estimated 6, I believe, and Keith can correct me, because I thought it was 12 for the 12 probably for the entire parcel. Sure. Or was it 14?
Is it 12
yeah,
or 14?
it was. It was 14 for the
14,
the entire.
So,
yep.
So 7, it would on the southern parcel.
So just to be clear about what the possible outcome of this change would be, is they could theoretically add 1 unit to the existing building somehow, if they could find a way to maneuver the setback requirements. They could theoretically add 1 unit to the southern half building and have a single house in the northern half if the split goes through.
And if they did add another unit, then you would be back in front of the planning commission for special use permit.
Okay. So overall, I think I'm about as comfortable with the proposed condition and proposal as I think I'm going to be. So it's such a weird roundabout way of doing this. But I think, you know, when we heard from the neighbors after the first hearing, their concerns were about the art of the possible, right? With a massive expansion of units onto that property. I think the conditions provided and the possible outcomes afterward have mitigated that to the point where I don't think that's going to be as much of a problem. I don't love having different, you know, the RCC and the RB zoning in what is largely an RA area. But I think we've got ourselves enough of an outlier case that, you know, in case of the actual use of this property, that I can look past that in this particular case. So I think I would likely be supportive of this with the proposed conditions that have been provided by the applicant. Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that the condition offered, it doesn't really say that if it doesn't happen, then the property reverts back to its original rezoning. Now, maybe that's implied, or I guess I'd be interested in the staff's interpretation of that, because, I mean, I think it's a little bit open. And if you go past the 30 days and it isn't rescinded, then you've got to, you know, then the window is sort of, how do you control it? So anyway, I want to feel comfortable that if it doesn't happen in 30 days, the rezoning is null and void.
Yeah, that's the way it's written for. If they don't have an application submitted within that 30 days, it reverts back to the original zoning.
Okay.
Anyone else? Commissioner Bloomer.
Since I'm almost as old as Commissioner Primo, I start to forget original discussions on this. Has the petitioner ever actually told us what they plan to do with that property, or is this just a vague rezoning request?
Yeah, if I can help out on this one. Yeah, and in the initial discussion, they came and it was initially just brought to the Planning Commission as a rezoning request, and in the midst of that first meeting, it came to light that they were looking to, you know, sell off the northern half of the property to a single family owner. And that wasn't part of what we understood in the packet and in all the information. I think that was sort of just dropped on us, which is part of the reason why we pumped the brakes on it for a meeting or two. And then it came to all of the various hoops they had to jump through to make that plan happen, which is why it's dragged out a little bit longer than normal.
If I understand correctly, then the neighborhood objections to the original plan was not to the development of a single family dwelling on the northern part of the property. It was the potential for them to expand the building on the southern half.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Is the staff satisfied that this proposed revised rezoning request will eliminate the concerns of the neighborhood?
I think as best we can with this unique circumstances we're trying to.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, my recollection, and again, it may not be germane really, but there was concern that this open space was being used as basically as a park, and the applicant said, yeah, we've let the youth in the neighborhood use it for recreational purposes, but other than that, you know, I don't believe that's something that we can, you know, base our decision making on. But that was another concern of neighbors that had younger children in the neighborhood.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, musings? Commissioner Trezise.
Yeah, I think it's rather ambitious to think that they can come back with a rezoning request within 30 days, because in order to rezone it, they'd have to divide it because you can't rezone half a lot. But if that's the condition they want to put on, I think I would support this.
Just to be clear, we have other properties in the township that are split by zoning, not a property line. So eventually, if this property is rezoned and developed, then they would have to have a split.
Okay. Thank you for that correction.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Snyder. Oh, you're muted.
All right, sorry. I don't know how pertinent this is, but I do recall the discussion about the green space, and I feel like it was one of the commissioners, but perhaps not. But somebody mentioned the possibility of maybe the township acquiring that northern half of the parcel for the use of a park. I just found that really interesting and wondered if that was ever investigated. In general, I support this as it is. I really thought that was a great idea too, especially because so many community members indicated a need for that, that there wasn't really any park within a, easy to get to distance for their kids. So I don't know if that's relevant. If not, just tell me it's not relevant.
Mark, can you speak to whether or not that was looked into at all?
We certainly can't make them sell it to the township for a park. I don't know if the park commission would be interested in that property. But it still could work out after the rezoning if that's approved.
Yeah, I think that it's laudable to look at it to see if that's something that the park commission and the other decision-making bodies involved in that kind of decision would be interested in. I don't think that it should hold us up from moving this forward, since we are simply a recommending body on this particular decision. And that, we've been working on this one for 4 meetings or so now. And we should probably kick it up to the board with a recommendation. And if in the interim process, an investigation of that nature can be made, then that's amazing. I think, I agree. Sure, it'd be great to have a park there. Yeah, absolutely. Whether or not the property owner is interested or the township is interested is a decision for others to make. We can only sort of make our decision on the proposal before us. But I agree. I'd love to see it as a park. I just don't know if either party would be interested in it. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, seeing none, I think it would be prudent to do a straw poll here as well. And hopefully we can get this on our agenda for the next meeting. So we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner McConnell.
I commend the applicant and the staff for their perseverance and intuition and flexibility in this, and I support this.
Commissioner Primo.
Support.
Commissioner Cordill.
Support.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Support.
Commissioner Richards.
Support.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Support.
Commissioner Snyder.
Support.
Commissioner Trezise.
Support.
And the chair would support as well. All righty. I know it's been a long process, and I think I see the applicant in the waiting area there. Thank you for coming and being with us now for quite a few meetings. You're now qualified to be on the Planning Commission if you'd like to be. And we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item. So this will be on for a vote at our next meeting. Next agenda item is 9A, Township Board Update. Director Kieselbach, what do you have for us?
The Township Board's last meeting was May 18th. 2 action items. They approved the extension for the special use permit for Newton Place. As the Planning Commission probably remembers, this is part of the overall mixed use plan unit development. It was approved, and because the buildings totaled more than 25,000 square feet, they needed also a special use permit. And with this new amendment you're talking about tonight, that wouldn't have been the case because it still would have been under the mixed use. But the board did grant a 1-year extension for them on that special use permit. The board also approved an extension to the preliminary plat for Sierra Ridge. They have 27 lots left to develop in that overall plat, and they weren't able, with all the COVID and other things, able to start construction to get it moved towards the final plat. So the board did grant them a 2-year extension on that preliminary plat. The other one the board discussed was the rezoning for that property at the northeast corner of Jolly Road in Kansas. Again, the Planning Commission recommended denial of the rezoning. They had asked to have the industrial in the RA rezoned to a professional office. Since the Planning Commission had seen that, they have had meetings with the neighborhood, the folks that live on Kansas. They also offered 5 conditions to be part of that rezoning. One, they were going to take the northern 75 feet of that parcel and keep it as basically open space. They would use it as screening or a landscape buffer. And they also talked possibly putting some of their stormwater detention in that area. They also talked about providing a buffer equal to our ordinance. In the commercial district, we require double row of trees to screen as a buffer, and they offered that as a condition to install. They also talked about their driveways. They're going to move their main driveway as far east on Jolly Road as they can. They have a secondary access to the road that serves the elevation, which is to the east. And they were going to seek possibly a driveway on Kansas, and they would align it with the dentist office that's on the west side of Kansas. They also offered a condition to build the building as LEED certified. And the last one was to extend the public water main on Kansas Road for those residents. And the board was, at least the consensus after that meeting, they were in favor of rezoning it. So it's going to be up for action at their meeting on June 1st with those conditions. And then one other item, just to give an update too, for Joe's on Jolly, that's the former Value Tire site. If anybody's went past there, they demoed the building, and it's basically a block building, and they got the windows out, the walls are still there, and there's been no progress. They ran into some issues with the drain commissioner on providing stormwater management for that site. Good thing is those have been taken care of. The building permit has now been issued, so we're hoping that shortly you'll see some progress on that site.
That's awesome. I was actually, I had it on my sticky note to ask about that particular project today anyway, so good timing there. Any questions for Mark on that? On the update we just got there? No? Okay. Any liaison reports? Commissioner Primo.
I don't have a liaison report, but I think that we would be remiss not to thank Mark once again for the great help he's always been to this commission, and wish him the very best in retirement, and assure him that retirement is a misnomer.
Yeah, something tells me we haven't seen the last of Mark Kieselbach. We'll be hearing from him at some point, I would bet. But yes, I concur with Commissioner Primo's comments. It's been, what, 41 years, Mark, that you've been with the township? And it's remarkable to consider that in today's day and age, certainly. And, you know, if you, for those here and meeting, if you haven't, if you're able to stop by tomorrow afternoon to wish Mark well in person and have cupcakes, we certainly would love to see you there. I'm sure we can get you the details if you haven't received them already, but I think an email went out about that a week or two ago. So thank you, Mark. We appreciate that. All of your many years of service, and we wish you the best in your next adventure.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else with liaison reports or not liaison reports? Commissioner Snyder.
Thanks. I feel so out of order. I attended the Transportation Commission meeting on this past Thursday, and just some of the things that were discussed. The potential of implementing 2 railroad quiet zones for the CSX Railroad and the CN Railroad, but I mean basically the 2 sets of tracks that run through the township. From what I understood, the priority tracks were the southern ones, the CSX. I mean, I think I have that right. But there's a lot of documentation here about what it would cost, and it's all very intricate, but I found it very interesting. But essentially it seemed to be born of some residents' requests for quiet zones because the train horns are really annoying if you live near them. So there was lengthy discussion about that, and in general the board supports the implementation of these quiet zones, but there would have to be joint work done with Ingham County as well as Michigan State. And then just the other thing, the Transportation Committee moved to support the Pathway Master Plan. So that was pretty much what I took from the meeting, although they have some pretty in-depth discussions that are very interesting.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that. I live about 1/10 of a mile from those CSX tracks on the south side there. That is loud, especially in the winter when there's no, when all the leaves are down, there's no good tree cover between them, my property and that. So I'm excited about that possibility. Anyone else wishing to give an update? Okay, I don't see any. So before we move on to our last agenda items here, I do want to mention to Director Schmidt that this body had, as a part of its goals, established a number of subcommittees at the beginning of the year, and one of those committees was responsible for the MUPUD ordinance that you saw today, and working with staff to do that. We have, I think, 3 more that we set out some goals for at the outset of the year to try to make some amendments to our ordinances, as well as get a jump start on the future land use map before next year's master plan update. I would love it if you get a chance over the next couple of weeks to take a peek back at those goals, to sort of see what's feasible from your perspective, and see if we can't start spinning those subcommittees up. I know that, you know, we're entering the summer and, you know, there's plenty to do, but we did express an interest in trying to make some progress on a number of areas. I think it's the sign ordinance, the future land use map, and there was one more that I'm blanking on in this moment. But if you don't mind taking a peek at that, I'm sure we'd love to make some further progress, since we are now done with the MUPD ordinance, at least knock on wood for now.
Absolutely, having just done a sign ordinance in the last 6 months, with it fresh in my head, I'd be happy to probably a good one to start with because I have a lot of thoughts.
Perfect.
Better.
Yeah, I think the first meeting that we had this year, this calendar year, was when we were talking about that. If you want to go take a look at the discussion, and then the next meeting we had a vote on it. So
Absolutely.
that might be helpful to take a peek. In addition, we had made some progress on a form-based code pilot proposal that we were looking to send over to the township board. Peter or Mark, I'm sure, had that, somewhere, and I think we were leaving it for you to take a look at to see if you had any thoughts on it as well. And then at some point, we're going to need to send that to the board for them to start consideration of that proposal as well. So, lot to do, as I'm sure you're discovering.
Also, something I'm very familiar with, having done a pilot project previously, and would be happy to share my thoughts with the chair on that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Looking forward to that. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we move on? Or are we just anxious to get to the end here? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 10, which is project updates. We have one new application, 2 site plans received, and 1 site plan approved. Which brings us to agenda item 11, which is public remarks. This is our final opportunity for public remarks this evening. There's no one in our attendees area of our Zoom call. So if you'd like to join the conversation from home, you can give us a phone call at 517-349-1232. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and address at the beginning of your remarks. We'll give you a moment to dial the number. Anyone on the phones, Director Geebies?
No, sir, the phones are quiet.
All righty, then we'll move on. We'll close public remarks and move on to our final agenda item of the evening, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Primo. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Cordell. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the Planning Commission stands adjourned at 8:30 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Congrats, Mark, on your last planning commission meeting.
Woohoo! You made it.
Hey.